Good morning. Continuing our review and summary. I say review because we've learned this already once, this conclusion of Ayin Beis. We are on in volume 3, on page 1455. The new paragraph there. And the Rebbe Rashab has returned to the central theme, which is essentially the purpose of existence. The neshama is coming down to this world. Each of our souls coming down into this physical world, into a body, into an animal soul, to a material world with all its concealments and challenges, and with plenty of support. We talked the cosmic support system, and namely what he's been discussing mostly is the malachim here. Earlier we talked about the Einei Ha'eda, the leaders of the community, the leaders of the nation. We also spoke about Torah, though that's the bigger theme that began on page 1350, and the Rebbe Rashab never gets back to that, but we will get back to it, and we've referred to it many times. And of course, mitzvahs as well, ner mitzvah. And now we've learned that the very descent below, which we said is only possible for a neshama, only a soul can come down to a world like this and deal with the challenges. Because any lower level of Gilui Elokut, any lower level of divine revelation would not be able to withstand the challenges of this difficult world. But because the neshama is rooted in what he called an atzilus, and b'sheidish b'sharshe, and b'sheidish sharshe, it's rooted in atzmus, in sof, namely, he spoke not just the level of oir, but the level of helama atzmi, and the level of shmoya atzmi. Because it's rooted in such high levels, that's why it has the ability to come down and achieve something. I'll just quote, if you want to call it lahavdil, but in science, there's the expression, I think it's attributed to Einstein, which is that you cannot solve a problem from within the system where the problem was created. So to come into this world and transform it, not just to withstand the challenges, but actually to influence and change the world, you need something that's greater than the energy that creates this world. Because the energy that creates the world is somewhat commensurate. It's divine energy, obviously, but its whole job is to sustain and maintain existence. That's the energy of creation. What we've been calling mamala kalalman, even sevav kalalman, which is beyond, it's transcendent, but it's still somewhat relative to existence. Sevav kol alman, it's transcendent level. To really not just, as I said, withstand the challenges, but to bring in a new energy that transforms the world. And furthermore, brings new levels of elokus that were not there even before the Tzimtzum. That requires only a neshama can do that. Because the neshama comes from a place that's beyond the system, so to speak. So the cosmic order would be the system. Malachim are within the system. Within the system, God created administrators, if you wish, ministers. These are the God's supervisors, the ones that distribute, the distributors, the cosmic, the digestive system, everything we've learned about Malachim. Like he said, they're from the world of Bria. So it's Ischachus. Neshamas, coming from Atzilus and all the way back from Atzmus, have that ability. And now, that's one part of it. The second part is, but how does that ability emerge? And the Neshama L'mayla learns Torah and has Ava v'Yirah and experiences godliness. So here's the interesting twist. Is Dafka, when it comes down Lamata and the place that greatest challenge, that brings out those, like what he calls Keiches Atzmim, the core faculties of the soul as they're rooted in Asmus. So it goes in both directions. Only the Neshama can come down here, and it's only down here that draws out from the neshama those strengths. So in other words, a neshama is not challenged in the world of Atzilus or Bria or Gan Eden. It's not going to reveal those faculties. Like we see Begashmi's Pashut, when a person has resistance and there's something pushing back, and those challenges are the ones that draw out the deepest strengths that a person has. So that sums up a bit of what we've learned which is setting the stage for the next section about how the darkness of this world brings out these faculties. So what we learned yesterday was on the top of page 1455, where he said that, just to continue, he's using the mashal of Er Hariyah, the power of eyesight, vision. That vision, on one hand, when the eyesight comes into the physical eye, it has limitations and therefore needs a siyua, outside support, meaning an outside light, er zulose, in order to illuminate so the eye can see. But it's the eye that sees, not the light that sees. It's the very eye that sees. And then there's the eye, the etzem kayachariya, that's how the eye is within the nefesh, that remains concealed. But in the nimshal, the neshama, as it comes down below, is like the eye that comes inside the vessel. The neshama comes into a guf, an nefesh habamis. So the neshama is concealed and it needs the siyua of the malachim, but it's only a siyua, it's only a support. It's the neshama itself that has the capacity, that has the faculties to be able to see the divine and to experience the divine and transform the guf and nefesh habamis, the body and animal soul and the world. But that is dafka when the neshama comes down below. So he said, that's why it says, Yitzenu ki ishin einai. Ishin einai is the pupil of the eye, like we learned, which is deeper than the eyes themselves. The eyes, he said, are the malachim. Ishin einai is the pupil of the eye. Dafka neshamas Yisrael have that capacity. But it's interesting, Ishin ayin, being the pupil of the eye, on one hand, is the most precious part of the eye, and therefore, like a neshama, the most precious connection to God, the closest connection, but it's also the dark. It's the darkness of the pupil that is the ikr hariyu b'shocher sheba'ayin, like the Medrash Rabbah says in Emer, that it's not that the eye, that the main vision comes not through the whiteness of the eye, but through the pupil of the eye, the dark part of the eye, which is the filter, the focus, as we discussed. So, what does that mean in Aveda? That is dafke. Is the expression. From darkness I created for you light. So what's the Aveda? The Aveda is that the revelation of the core faculty of the soul is dafka through the animal soul. And he continues to explain that because the neshama itself, it comes from Atzmus Ein Sof, and its core entity, neshama, is a divine personality, basically. And that's why it has the power to come down, because it's atzmis. That's why it can come down and refine the animal soul. And it has that ability, which malachim don't have. She'ein zeh b'keich malachim, because they're only nevraim levat. They're part of the creation itself. And that's why the neshama has the ability to reach l'shtaba b'gufa de malka, to be bound and absorbed in the body of the king. And in great la'ava rabba and ava b'tainugim, due to its root and source, which is its primary personality. And it does not change that personality even when it goes down and is concealed and it manifests in ishtalshlus. But it's concealed. Meaning relative to the Giluyim, the revelations, the neshama has lamaila, the neshama below does not have that capacity to. It has the capacity potentially, but revealed level, the neshama above is higher. Revelation. Nevertheless, Ava Rabba and Ava B'Tanugim is Dafka Lamata. And the parentheses he explained, even though in Tanya he says that the dveikus of the neshama is higher above, he says that's dveikus. It's not talking about necessarily Ishtaba B'Gufa Demalka. That's Dafka in this world. And how does that come out? Through Dafka the Nefesh Habam is the darkness that brings the Keiches Asmim, Shalom B'Chinas Ava Rabba V'Ava B'Tanugim, that ultimate tremendous power, love, and power of and the love of pleasures. I don't want to compare it, but yesterday we mentioned, I gave the example of Baal Tshuva and Tzaddik, but it's not really a comparison, but just as a distant example, when he says in Tanya Perek Zayin, so he speaks about the Tshuva, so he says, a person who never was thirsty is never going to have the same level of passion and thirst. Someone who drinks water and has been sated is not going to have that Semoyin Gadol, that profound thirst. Samalach nafshi is dafka someone who is distant and was in the dark, will really appreciate it. And that's why there's what he calls there tshuva ma'ava, that the ava is this tremendous love that comes precisely because of the distress of the neshama. The reason I say it's not a good example here is because that was discussed earlier in Ein Eid Momata Lamaila when we talked about distress. Here he's talking mostly Hamshach Mamayla Lamata, but even when he's talking about that, the neshama does come down below. And when it comes down below and has to struggle with the challenges of life, so it has the similar idea. When it doesn't have to struggle, it can't really come to an ava rabba and ava b'tainugim. Where do you really have pleasure? When you realize, when you're in a place where you are lacking something, and then you overcome that lack, and you fill the vacuum, you fill the void, and you develop. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. You look at a world that where the divine is concealed, but then you contemplate on the reality of a lakus. Dafka in this world, like we learned, Ein arech lechaz dafka in elam haza. Dafka in this world, you come to realize the infinite distance and the true reality of Atzmus. That in turn creates a tremendous rush. Just like after a thirsty person, just like from the dark, creates this, like you said, and that's why from the dark, the pupil of the eye, comes the main vision, and the context of the neshama, the main vision of the neshama, riyah. Even though he doesn't say it explicitly here, but we did learn it, listakli bikara de malka, to gaze, and really with the pleasure of riyah, is dafka through the darkness of this world. And that is now what he's going to explain, Ubira Inyan, the next paragraph, in the next 7 pages, as I pointed out, till he gets back to riyah, and then we'll begin the last section of Ayin Beis, back to Makbir L'Sheves, where it all comes together, Neshama, Mitzvah, Ner Hashem Nishmasadim, Ner Mitzvah, Teira'er. So, middle of page 1455, we shall continue now. And if you want to follow the text, go to ayinbeis.com, unless you have the Sefer, where all the text has been scanned in PDF files.
Let me take a question.
Yes.
I've been meaning to ask this over the past several classes, on the Indian of Riyah, seeing, and you talked about vision quite a bit in this review. So in this lowest of worlds, at least, because we don't have the eye cannot see godliness, at least, not until the Vias Mashiach. Anyways, is this notion of vision that now in this physical reality associated more with cognition and understanding of godliness, a recognition of godliness, that I can see someone is godly by doing a mitzvah or learning Torah. I can see it with my eyes, but I can essentially cerebrate, mentate, understand, recognize that this is godliness. So it's not exactly like I'm looking at, I don't know, an angel flying with wings. I'm sorry, a terrible metaphor, but I can see that there's godliness around me based on my recognition that certain behavior is godly and certain behavior is the opposite. So we've talked a lot in classes a long time ago about Riyah is understanding and Shmiya is understanding. Riyah is like Chachma and Shmiya is like Bina. So I'm wondering if this parallel of vision, Riyah, continues, this notion of cognition continues to apply throughout this discussion, or when you say vision, Riyah, you mamish mean I can physically see godliness.
I don't think it's black and white. First of all, he doesn't say here that we come to the level of Riyah before Mashiach comes. He says we attempt to come to that. That's part of the contemplation. So overall, to make this practical, it's called relativity. It's all relative to where you are. There are people who learn an idea. Let's talk a real business example. Lahavdil. There are people look at a chart at economic statistics, and they don't see much. They see ups and downs and so on. You give it to a master, an expert, and he sees a pattern. He sees something that others don't see. And I'm using the word see very deliberately. What is he seeing? or he's recognizing. That's a level of perception that he has, is like sight compared to others who only hear about it or only know it peripherally. So it's all relative to the individual. You can learn a idea in Ayin Beis, and you understand the general picture. There are others that learn it and actually can visualize it. So visualization is a very broad term. There are people, it says, Chacham Einav Bereisheh, wisdom. There are people who have their eyes open and don't see anything. And there are people who have their eyes closed and see everything. So seeing is not just a matter of a physical seeing, whether you see a table or a chair or a bird. Someone looks at the same thing. You look, it's raining outside, so you'll know you need to take an umbrella or a raincoat. A meteorologist will see the rain as a process of pressure systems and highs and lows and so on in the barometer. And a physicist will see it as a result of all kinds of molecular or and atomic and subatomic forces at work. And a Kabbalist will see it as a result of spiritual energy, of chesed and gvura combined, that turns into rain. Which one is seeing it clearly? You climb a mountain. If you're on the bottom of the mountain, what you see in the horizon is going to be a certain limited perspective. You climb up 50 feet, you'll see a broader horizon. You climb up to the top of Mount Everest. They're all seeing something, but it's all relative to who they are. And the same thing is in perception. So this is not to be turned into a physical thing. This is all about levels of growth. So every one of us starts with Shema Yisrael, as I discussed. Shema is Shmiya. I wrote about it in chapter 5 of my essay, that in bringing together many ideas, that Shmiya, however, can be impacted to the point that you could start visualizing what you heard. And that's where Riyah starts coming in. But there's different levels of Riyah. Lower levels, higher levels. Ultimately, Asid Lave, when the physical world itself will be so refined and so saturated with the Lakus, then we'll be able to actually see, like we see Gashmis today, we'll see Ruchnius then. But today, Ruchnius is still something that's novel, that our senses, our physical eye sense cannot see. So that's why we need the siyua, the support, like an eye that needs light to shine. Once you see the light, the eye can begin to see. Now, what does it see? Again, it's all relative to the individual. Some see less, some see more. The more avodah you do, look, officially, if you say Shema every day, several times a day, and you say it with this kavanas, I can assure you that within a little period of time, your Shema is not going to be the same as it was in the beginning. That's the whole point of exercising, just like exercising your muscles. When you exercise your Hizbananus, you exercise your Shema Yisrael, you're going to come to deeper levels of visualizing godliness. Now, what level? Each person has to figure that out through their Aveda, but it's a step-by-step process. Now, there's Mamata Lamaila. We come to it through our efforts. And then, from time to time, like Matan Teira, Hashem gives us a Gili Mumayla Lamata. Vayered Hashem al Hasine, V'chol ha'am royim. And the entire nation saw, to the point they even saw the sounds and they heard the sights. So Shmiya and Riyah became like one, temporarily. So that was a revelation from above. That's like a siyua, if you wish, a surge and a type of infusion and downloading from above down. But the ultimate goal is that we should experience it from the bottom up, which is the Aveda. That's why the Neshama comes down below with all the support. The Neshama itself has to climb this ladder, has to go on this journey. And as it does, it becomes more and more refined. And essentially, it comes down to the more work you do, the more refined you are, the more you're a keli, and you're, including your eye, including all your senses for that matter, become kelim and the vehicles for experiencing the divine on the different levels, which Riyah is the ultimate level, and the Riyah itself, there's many stages.
Beautiful.
So you see,
Wonderful.
for example, Vayera Hashem al Har-Sinai. I'm sorry, Vayera Hashem al Avram. Avram had Riyah, Hashem appeared to him. But it's not the same Riyah as was by Matan Torah, and not the same Riyah as Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the ultimate prophet. Then there are prophets. Moshe was Misnava Bezeh, like we learned Aspaklari HaMe'ira. Then there's the Oves is Aspaklari HaMe'ira through Aspaklari She'ena Me'ira. The Nevi'im are just Aspaklari She'ena Me'ira. All these are levels of vision. They were all visionaries. But there's levels of vision. You could see purely, clearly, like transparent. You could see transparent, but with some filter, or it could be more filters. Like the fact is, you look at sunlight, it comes through the window is one thing. Then you put up a curtain, it gets diffused, and to the point you can conceal it more and more. So you're still seeing, but it's not the same level of seeing as you would look at it straight face to face, like ayin ba'ayin yirah, like you said, panim b'panim, or you see the backside, which means seeing more of a reflection, and there's a reflection of a reflection. So this is many languages, many terms of chassidus that all talk about different levels of experience.
Awesome, wonderful. That was outstanding. Thank you. Thank you for indulging the question. That was a home run. Thank you.
So now, middle of page 1455, ubira inyan. The explanation of this inyan of that dafka specifically to the soul coming down below in the dark world, that it reaches the highest levels of divine experience. So he says, the bira inyan who the inexiv, now new pasuk. Shcheda ni v'nava. I am black, I am dark, v'nava and beautiful. Maybe this is where the root comes from. Black is beautiful. Yirah Sholom. B'nei Yerusholayim. So the neshama, as we're going to learn in a moment, says to the daughters of Jerusalem, I am dark, but beautiful. V'yadua, and it's known. And actually, this was discussed earlier in the Hemshech Ayin Beis in volume 1. And I can tell you, I have it marked here, chapters 177 and 178. Shazeu Maimer Knesset Yisrael. Who's speaking here? Who is saying, I am dark and beautiful? This is the statement, Maimer Knesset Yisrael, the declaration by the Knesset Yisrael is a general name. It literally means the community of Israel. But it's referring to the community of the Neshamas of Yisrael, usually Malchus. But the Neshamas Yisrael, Hainu HaNeshamas HaMelubasha is Beguf. HaMelubasha is Beguf. It's referring to the souls as they manifest inside of the body. Who are they speaking to? La neshama k'meishi l'mayla. This is a dialogue between the soul below to the neshama as it's rooted above. It's like speaking to your ancestor, but not ancestor, to your root, which is called B'nei Yerusholayim, as he's soon going to explain. And what is this neshama below saying? I've come down below in a dark world. Even though I am dark. Why? Machmas haguf v'nefesh habamis. Due to the body and the animal soul. Shemaylim al eid Hashem v'kedushasei. That conceal the divine light and its holiness. U'makol mokim, and nevertheless v'nava. And nevertheless I am beautiful. Meaning not only am I not affected by it, but I'm beautiful. And we'll learn soon what that means exactly. That actually becomes even more beautiful, specifically because of the Shcheirani. But that's the second stage. Right now, the statement is that though it's dark, though I am darkened, I should say, because of the Helam, of the Guf and Nefesh Abamis in this world, B'kol Mokim V'nova. Now he's going to explain this more in detail. Why is it called B'nei Yerusholayim? Why is the neshama above called the daughters of Yerusholayim? And the more details in this whole description. Now, the truth is, this is a very poor piece in the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim. I think in Shcheirani of L'Kutei Torah and Shir Hashirim, he talks about it. I just want to see, I see.
I posted it.
I cited it, and I definitely elaborated on it the first time we learned about it. And I see also, let's see, someone said that. I'm just looking at my notes here. Okay. You posted it? Okay, good. So now, but obviously there are different explanations for this verse, in this verse. The Rebbe Rashab is going with an explanation, so let's see how he explains it and breaks it down. Like I said, this is the beginning of a good, nice 7 pages where he elaborates on this concept. But this is the opening. The neshama is below, speaking to the neshama above, in its root. Because the souls, as they are above, they're called Nikroim or Nikrois B'nei Yerushalayim. They're called the daughters of Yerushalayim. Why? Pirush, The word Yerusholayim, from Medrash, she's going to explain, is made up of two words. Pirush Yerusholayim hu Yirah Sholom. And it's actually two stages. If you look in the Medrash, she's going to quote that it was named Yirah by Avram, and then it was added the word Sholom. So together, Yirah Sholom is Yerusholayim. So Yerushalayim is two words, Yirah Sholom. But not with the Aleph, Yud Reish Vav, Shin Lamed Yud Mem. So he said, could the Isha b'Medrash Rabbah, which literally means, let me translate, Yirah Sholom Yirah means reverence. Yirah contrast to Ava, love, reverence, respect, awe. And Sholom means complete. So essentially, it's a city that's called by the name of complete irreverence. It means it's completely saturated with the reverence of Hashem. And he brings, Medrash Rabbah Vayera, Parsha Nun Vav. So this is in the beginning, Medrash Rabbah, in chapter 56, talks about Avram. Avram Kara Oise Yirah. Or Yirah, I think, is the pronunciation there. The Avram called this city Yirah or Yirah.
Yirah.
What?
He called it Yirah. I'm looking at the Midrash now.
Okay, fine. That's how they pronounce Yirah. Okay. Shem, and we know Shem precedes Avram. Shem is one of the three children of Noach. Kara Eisei Shalom. He called that city Shalom. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is all the Medrash. Said God, Hareini Kere Eish Yerusholayim. I will now call it Yerusholayim, Kamei Shekara Eisei Shnehem. Basically combining both names that Shem and Avram called it by. Yirah Sholom, Yerusholayim. And here actually it says without a Yud at the end. Yiru Sholom. So that's really where the word comes from. So Hashem is taking these two names and putting them together, and I will call it Yerusholayim.
It's funny that Abraham who
one second. Ubematnas Kahuna, which is a commentary on Medrash Rabbah, he says Yirah, the way Avram called it, Gematria Shaloi Yaru. So Yirah is also the Gematria Yud Reish Vav, which explains why is it not, if it's Yirah, it should have been Yud Reish Aleph Shin Lamed Mem. Why is Yud Reish Vav Shin Lamed Mem? So the Matnas Kuna says, because Yirah is the Gematria Yaru. Still needs explanation why we go by the Gematria, but that's what the Matnas Kuna adds. Let me just finish and I'll take questions in a moment. So here we see the Rebbe Rashab, as we often does, begins to cite sources and grounds everything, not just saying a statement. It's elaboration, relatively speaking. So Tosfos in the Gemara in Tainus, page 16a, Shalachein ein nes miyud bechinas betevis Yerusholayim achar halamed. And that's why you don't put a yud. Because Yerusholayim, as you see, most people write it out. They spell it like this: Yud Reish Vav Shin Lamed Yud Mem. But why? So why do we find that in the Torah it's called Yud without the Yud? Because it's from the word Shalom. And Shalom that was the name that Shem gave it. Shalom, Shin Lamed Mem, not Shin Lamed Yud Mem. That's where the Tosfos adds. So you don't add a Yud after the Lamed. Okay. That's the Medrash. Now he's going to explain what does Yirah Sholom actually mean. What does it mean to have complete or full reverence? Anybody wants to ask anything?
I just wanted to say a comment. It's funny that you would think that would be Yitzchak Rabbeinu that said was talking about Yirah and not Avram who found Ava and everything.
Well, first of all, every one of them has all the elements. Avram had also Yiras Hashem. He didn't just have Avas Hashem. And Yitzchak didn't just have Yirah, he also had Ava. It's just the question is, what's their primary function? Same thing with Yaakov. That's number one. Number two, We have to look it up. Maybe Chassidus may discuss this somewhere. Maybe sometimes why Avram focused on the Yirah part. But maybe we'll understand it also from understanding what exactly is Yirah Sholom. But it's a good remark. Any other questions or comments? So he says, "Ve'inyan Yirah Sholom." What is this Yirah Sholom? Hainu b'chinas shleimus hayirah. It means that in reverence itself, you could have reverence of God, and then shleimus hayirah, complete reverence, the fullest level of that yirah. Who and what does that mean? The fullest. U'liyas b'chinas bittul betachlis. So yirah is essentially associated with bittul. Ava, love, is associated with kiruv. When you love someone, even though you should have a measure of also respect and yirah, but the love itself is about closeness. It's about commonality. It's about actually connecting and bonding with each other. Yirah is the opposite. Yirah is the respect, the space, in a good way. The reverence you have for someone. It's not closeness, it's more of like respect and space and distance in a way. Not distance in a negative way. I mean distance as in respect for something that you revere. So not everything you love, you revere. Not everything you revere, you love. You should have both. When it comes to God, there's a mitzvah of Avos Hashem, the mitzvah of Yiras Hashem. But Ava generally is about the closeness of relating to it. And Yirah is more the respect of it being beyond you. So therefore, Bittul, when you relate to something, on the contrary, you're integrating it. So even though you also need Bittul, but that aspect of integrating is more drawing it closer, drawing it, internalizing it. Reverence is more of like standing from a distance and respecting it and not feeling that you're equal to it, so to speak. Now you need both. So when you say Yirah Sholom, you say not just Bittul, not just some reverence, you're saying complete reverence. Utter what we call Bittul, we call suspension of self.
Yeah, you would say that because the Arcade
associated with the word humility or modesty, but I like to use the word suspension. The Friedrich Rebbe actually uses the word Bittul. He translates in Yiddish. He translates as commitment, as dedication, Ibrigegemkeit, devotion, total devotion. But here it's a total reverence, total Bittul betachlis. And he's going to continue to explain what I just said in detail. What do you want to say? What do you want to ask or say?
I just want to say that's where the Akeda was. So that's where he had to go down into his soul and experience the Bittul more than anything else. And it's a special thing from the Akeda on. That's when he probably named it.
Well, that's actually an explanation to your earlier question, because if you look there in the Torah, it says that Hashem knew that Avram loves him. But then it says, Ati Yadaiti ki yore lekimata. After the Akeda, Hashem says, now I know that you also revere me, because you did something that you would not have liked, which is ready to offer your son. That showed Avram was not just his natural love for God. He did something that also revered and respected and realized that listening to God, even when it wasn't pleasant. Even though Hashem is saying, take your son, your only son, the one you love, and bring him as an aked, bind him for me. So that may be the reason that Avram used the word Yirah, not Ava there, because Avram reached a level where he transcended his own personality, because naturally Avram was Ava, and here he reached the level of Yirah. That may be actually an explanation. It may say somewhere that. I have to look it up. But that was just, when you just mentioned that's what came to me. Ukiyadua, as it's known, the ikra bittul hu b'yirah dafka. The main bittul, and here bittul means, again, suspending yourself, is dafka in yirah. The ava, because when it comes to love, hu b'chinis yesh misha'ayiv. Love, by definition, means there's someone there that loves you, or there's someone there that is loving. It's a yesh, an entity that is misha'ayiv. It's not about It's not about divesting yourself or suspending yourself. It's about actually experiencing love. Shari inyan ha'ava hu shechefetz or shechofez bahagili, because the idea of love is that he desires the gili. That's why he loves it. He loves means he's drawn to it. Because being close to God and God being close to him is good for him. Like we learned earlier, for example, hu chayecha, when you understand that God is the source of your life and the source of your blessings, and you want to be connected to him, you're drawn to him. So there's someone being drawn. That means you're experiencing a very profound relationship, a profound connection, and you're drawn to the one that you're loving. It means the individual who's the loving individual has a taste, a good taste and pleasure in godliness. And that's why he desires a gili alakus, and that's what av is. Av means when you love someone, you want to be with them. You want to be connected with them. You want to be attached with them, to them. He wants a divine revelation that should radiate and illuminate in his nefesh and in the world. That's what Ava dictates. That means he desires and wants something for himself. And he goes further. Ubederach klal, and in general, inyan ha'ava, love, the concept of love, hu shereitze be'eze dover, he desires something. So there's an identifiable object or objective that the one who's loving wants. So harizeh b'chinas yesh. Now it doesn't mean yesh, this is a yesh. It doesn't mean yesh here, arrogant, God forbid, or yesh as in any type of like negative way. He means, but there's an existing entity that's doing the loving. As we're going to learn, Yirah is the opposite. Yirah is you want to get out of yourself. You want to be absorbed in something beyond you. That's called Bittul. But Ava is appreciating what you love, so you want to be close to it. When the Jews stood by before Matan Torah, soon we're going to come after Pesach to Shavuos. So it's called the Shleishi Simei Hakbola, the 3 days where Hashem says to separate yourself. But one of the parts is, he says, do not come close to the mountain. And one of the reasons is because it was a very holy place. But the Rebbe has a beautiful talk that he delivers, explains because their desire, when they would see the Gilui Alakus of Matan Torah, what would be your first inclination? Is to run toward it. To be part of it, like Nadav and Avihu. They ran into the Mishnah, they saw the Holy of Holies. When you appreciate Alakus and you love it, what do? You run, you want it. You desire it. That's a good thing, the desire. But the desire has to be tempered, has to be controlled or disciplined, or you can get, like what happened in Nadav Avihu. It's like the Yirah Sholom says, due to their tremendous love, they couldn't contain it. He's not saying that right now here, that explanation, but the point is that Ava is a tenuah, is a movement of closeness, of you desiring something because you love it so much. The more you love it, the more you want it. Yirah, as we're going to learn, is appreciating something that's completely beyond you. And it's not something you want to become, you don't want more of, it's not like you becoming greater, it's you actually becoming less in the presence of that greatness. So Ava is you integrating, you want to become an extension of it, you want to become part of it. You want it to be close to you. Mashenkein, inyan ha'yirah, by contrast, yirah, reverence, or respect, or awe. Awe may be a very good word here as well, because awe is not love. Love is closeness. Awe is like you stand in awe of something, you lose yourself in the process. So he says, Bittul atzmei mahusei. The exact opposite. It's about suspending, losing yourself and muhusei, your personality. The gam b'yirah tata, even the lower yirah. We spoke about Yirah Sholom, Yirah Elah, there's Yirah tata. In Tanya, he talks about in the later chapters, in chapter 40 and on. So he says, even Yirah Tata, which is a lower level of Yirah, she b'chinas yesh, mi sheyareh, Just like there's someone who loves, there's also someone who reveres. So in Yirah Tato, there is a yesh. Shaloin is battle b'zeh kol mitziyusei. That's why it's called a yesh, because even in Yirah, the lower level, he's not completely battle. Yirah Sholom, Yirah Allah is going to be tachlis, Yirah betachlis. But even now he's going to compare, even Yirah Tato, where there is an entity that is revering God, there the focus, yes, taka yesh, but the focus is to quiet down the yesh. And almost like silent as much as possible. Not complete bittul, but bitla yesh. In Ava, it's not quieting down the yesh. The yesh is actually becoming more. Not as a yesh of a selfish, self-contained ego, but it's when you love something, you're drawn to it. It expands everything. It makes you want to become. It makes you become greater by becoming part of the thing that you love. That's why you want to connect with it. Bittul hayesh, and then now shleimus hayira. Now going back to Yirah Sholom, shleimus hayira, yesh shleimer hakavona b'chinas Yirah Allah. The Rebbe Rashab is adding yesh shleimer. You can say that is the level of Yirah Allah, higher form of reverence. She b'chinas bittul mitzias. That's bittul mitzias. Bittul hayesh means you're a yesh, you're an entity, conscious of yourself. Ava is you feel the value and you feel the beauty and what he called before, everything that God represents. So you want it and you're drawn to it. Yirah Tata is you feel the reverence for it. So you're still a yesh, but you're recognizing already that this is something that's beyond you. So you're not completely sublimated and not completely nullified in the presence. But Bitla yesh, one example is sometimes given for this, like a student who's become a great teacher, but then in the presence of his teacher, he obviously is quiet. Even though his students, when they're with him, they see how great he is, but in the presence of his own teacher is Bitla yesh. Why is it yesh? Because not really Batl Mitzias, because it's not like it's at this moment in the presence of greatness beyond him, he has a bittul. That's called bittul hayesh. Bittul mitzias means that even when he's not with his teacher, he completely is battul. I don't want to go into the details of that. It's discussed earlier in Ayin Beis. So bittul hayesh is bittul, as opposed to ava, which isn't bittul. Ava is more of it. It's still elikus, but it's elikus on your terms where you're integrating it. Bittul is more a type of distance, but it's only bittul hayesh. And Yirah Sholom, he says Yirah Allah, bittul mitzi is that is completely non-existent. Now, most of us cannot reach that level so easily, but nevertheless, there is that level called bittul mitzias. Okay. Let me stop here before I continue. Any questions? And this is all, remember, let's not lose sight of the plot here. This is all coming to explain B'nai Yerusholayim, which is the neshama above, that the neshama below is speaking to when it says Shcheira Ani v'Nava. I am dark but beautiful. So it's still going on for a while here. Let me see. This piece of Yerusholayim going to go for a while, actually. And you think it may sound like it's tangential. It's not so tangential, but I'll tell you why. Because the question is, why is the neshama saying it below to the neshama above? Because ultimately it's a way of connecting. And we want to understand neshamas above and below and realize that ultimately the neshama above, even though ostensibly it's higher because Yerusholayim, Yirah Sholom, but as dafka the neshama comes down below, that reaches a level even higher. Ava Rabba and Ava B'Tainugim, even higher than the Yirah Sholom of B'nai Yerushalayim. Just giving you a little preview of where this is headed. So that's why he's elaborating, not just to tell us about B'nai Yerushalayim, but also to understand the context of the neshama's descent, how far it goes down, but then how great it becomes. But we'll learn that inside. So that I just wanted to give the fuller picture and context here.
I know we already learned it, but now a little more confused than the first time we learned it. I'm having a hard time understanding how this dialogue or relationship between Neshamas Yisrael below versus in their original source above, how that relates to Ava and Yira. I don't see
because we
the
haven't
connection.
finished the topic. Let's see what he's going to say.
Okay.
There's going to be a bunch of pages now that he's going to discuss this.
I see. Okay.
I don't want to jump ahead.
No, I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something in what we just learned.
Oh, he
The
didn't discuss
connection.
that. He didn't
Okay.
discuss.
That's what I thought. I thought I was missing something. Thank you.
No. Yeah. V'zeu shavrom kora oisei. Now he's going back to the Medrash. And now we'll understand why Avram called it Yirah. The Apirashu. Interesting. How was it pronounced? Yirah? 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 Yirah?
Look at the first thing I posted in the WhatsApp chat.
Okay, I'm looking now.
Oh, maybe it doesn't have it there. But if you look at the second post, and yeah, from Bereshis Rabbah, the Yikra Abraham Shema Makomahu Hashem Yireh.
I see. Okay, so now the word Yirah, what the Rebbe Rashab is adding now, also comes from the word Riyah. As a matter of fact, Hashem Yirah can be also that Hashem appeared there, or I saw Hashem. So he's now going to connect the two. So he says like this: Yirah da pirushu Riyah. The simple interpretation is Hashem Yirah. Hashem appeared. Hashem was seen. Shaydei Riyah samahus nasa b'chinas Bittul b'mitzias. So he's connecting the word Yirah, reverence, to the word Yirah, which is to be seen. Why? Because sight is what elicits this level of reverence. When you don't see something, you hear about it, so it could affect you. But there's nothing like the awe that's experienced when you're actually in the presence of something of this nature. So in other words, what Avraham Avinu saw, or what elicited this level of Bittul b'mitzias. V'zeu dir Yirah lo b'chochmah, and that's why we say Yirah lo is the level of Chochmah. She b'chinas Riyah. Chochmah is the level of vision, in contrast to Bina, which is Shmiyah, to hear. Now this, clearly, the reason he's bringing this, to me at least, it's clear, is connected to the whole discussion of Riyah. It's talking about the power of vision, eyesight, and the different levels that you reach. So clearly that's, I think, the context here. But we'll see how it's developed. Meanwhile, he just said, that's what Avraham Avinu said, Yirah. But you have to make the connection, because at the end of the day, Yirah Sholom means complete, like he says, Yirah law. So what's the connection to Riyah? Yirah, that's the connection, because Yirah, sight brings to reverence. Now you could say also sight brings to love. That's true. It's not a contradiction. When you see something you love, obviously it's more powerful when you hear it, when you hear the voice. But that doesn't contradict. That's just two separate issues. So Av is also connected to. It can also be connected to Riyah. Here, however, the key discussion is about Bittul, not about Av. And now he goes back to the Matnas Kohuna, the commentary he cited before, that Yirah is gematria Yaru Yud Reish Vav. The Zeu Shekosav Matnas Kohuna Yirah gematria Yaru, or like Yerusholayim. That's the gematria. Why? This is a Kabbalistic piece, but I'll read it. V'yadua, as it's known, the Shem Ab Hu Reish Yud Vav. Asius. No, I'm sorry. Shem Ab is Reish Yud Vav Asius. It consists of 217 letters. I'd have to figure out how that works. That's Yud K Vav K How is it 217 letters?
What is Shem Av? What's the Milui there?
Yud Vav Daled. That's 3 letters. Not 217. Hey Yud. Vav Yud Vav and Hey Yud. I have to look this up, why it's 217. I think I discussed it the first time we learned it. I don't remember now. The milui of all 4 shemis are the same. I'm sorry, the amount of letters is the same. It's just whether it's Yud, whether Hey Aleph or Hey Hey or Hey Yud. So that doesn't change. So 217. It must be something with maybe a
217
breakdown.
or 216?
Reish Yud 217 because Yud and Vav. Oh, sorry, 216. I'm sorry, 216. I said 270. 216. Sorry. Okay, it's not a mathematical thing. I have to go look up what exactly the breakdown is. Another thing he says, "V'gvura b'gematria reish Yud Vav." Gvura, so Gvura, yeah, Gvura is the same gematria, 216. Dahainu b'chinas hayira. So he's basically connecting Yud Reish Vav is the gematria, which is Yirah. 216 is the same gematria as Gvura, and connected to Ab. Now, Ab is generally Chochmah. That's why he's bringing it here. So Chochmah, he said, was Riyah. So that's why Shem Ab, 72. What is 72 times 3? Is that 216? 70 times 3 is
Yes.
210.
72 times 3 is 216.
So there you go, Ab, 3 times. Not sure how you work that out. You do the Shem Ab Hureshud Vav Asis. Oh, that's interesting. So Shem Ab 3 times Ab is 216. I'm not sure if that's what he means here. Okay, you know what? I don't want to do any guesswork. There's no reason. This comes from sources. I'll look it up. We'll read one more line. V'zeh inyan shlemus hayira, and this is the meaning of Yirah Sholom shlemus hayira. Hainu b'chinas habittul b'metzias haba meb'chinas riyas hamachuz delikus. This is the bittul b'metzias, the utter nullification, the utter sublimation that comes from seeing the very essence or the very personality of Elikus. So Riyah Samahus brings to Yirah Sholom. Now, obviously, we still need to get back to the Neshamas Lamayla B'nei Yerusholayim and the Neshamas Lamata that are speaking and saying Shcherani. But that I'll leave for the next class because I see the next lines. He's going to continue this theme. So right now we covered primarily why the Neshamas above, but what is the meaning of Yerusholayim? We haven't even discussed B'nei Yerusholayim, just Yerusholayim, complete reverence as a result of seeing the Mahus of Elikus. Okay, I'll stop here. The line before the last on page 1455. Are there any questions, any comments, anything you want to bring up? Okay. Interesting. Some pieces the Rebbe Rashab expands and elaborates, and some places it's just so dense, not always easy to figure out why. But so be it. We work it through. We'll work it through. So I'm going to
It
stop
seems
here.
that, oh, I was just going to ask a quick question. I mean, I know maybe I'm processing too much, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. It seems as though since we're leading toward a discussion of vision, Isha and Einai and whatever, everything we've just learned over the past several days and weeks, it seems like he's leading to the suggestion that complete vision of godliness is more associated with Yira than Ava. Would you say that? I mean, or would you say the discussion is incomplete at this point, so one could not draw that inference at this point?
I would not draw that inference at all. And actually, I can make a case where he said that dafka lamata, you come to ava rab and ava betainugim. Doesn't use the word yira there.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little bit thrown by this
That's why.
emphasis
So
on
don't
Yira.
make. That's why I wouldn't make inferences until you know.
Another word for processing.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're shooting the arrow and then drawing the target.
Yeah, just curiosity. I can wait. I've learned after 4 years, I've learned to wait.
Yeah. More importantly, you also don't want to make a mistake in assuming something.
God forbid. Correct.
We'll see. I'm very patient because the Rebbe Rashab, we're in very able hands, and he's going to discuss it. If he stopped right here, we can speculate and see what, I think you need both. Av and Yira go hand in hand in Avodas Hashem. It's never a competition. They each serve a different role.
100%. Well, yeah. You could argue you need the Ava because if the Yira keeps you distant, then you can't get close without the Ava. So you need both.
Well, you could also say it's the Mamayla Lamata, Mamata Lamayla. You could say it's also the unity of Yechud Tata, Yechud Elah. You could say
Lovely.
it's many things can be said. But as you see, I'm not going to speculate right now. There's plenty of time to do that. Right now, let's learn this step by step and see where he's going with it. And then I find that that's the best way to come away with the correct conclusions. And that's a way of learning. Yeah. So we'll stop here. And the 1455, let me stop the recording.